There are three things that can affect your ability to communicate effectively in your relationship. There are three small things, but small things can lead to bigger problems, as we all know. So the three things that can result in communication breakdown are making assumptions, forming and drawing conclusions, and of course, the other one being passive aggressive. Now, these are not new things. These are things you're familiar with. And we as a society, we've become more educated. We're more knowledgeable. We have Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. There's so many media platforms out there to help educate you on not just relationships, but on yourself and issues, your personal issues, far less more the other person's issues. But a lot of times in relationships, when communication is breaking down, it is because one or both people are performing the same activities at the same time, which is dangerous. It's never a good thing for both of you to be thinking the same thing about the other person, right? One person always has to be aware or self-aware in order for the relationship to have any chance of progressing or any chance or getting better. There always has to be one person that is willing to compromise on helping the other person to get to the place where the relationship can benefit. Why do we make assumptions? I remember when my mom was alive, she died in 2015. My mom was a conspiracy theorist. You know what that is. Everything was a conspiracy against her. Everything was a theory about how somebody else was out to get her or somebody else was out to do her wrong. And that went on for a while. And, behaviors learned. So of course, as a young person and growing up, I started to adopt some of that behavior. And then in relationships, I was always thinking, this person is up to no good. At some point when the relationship starts to deteriorate and you start thinking this person is not up to no good, or this person doesn't have your best intentions, then you're in a bad place, right? You're in a really bad place when you think the person that you fell in love with is out to get you. That's a conspiracy theorist. And a lot of relationships digress to that point where you're thinking this person that you once loved, you once fell in love with, once had your back, no longer has your back. We have a problem. Like they say, Houston, we have a problem. But how did you get there? You got there because you started making assumptions, or you started drawing conclusions, or you were so passive, your behavior was so passive aggressive that you never thought in making the assumptions or drawing the conclusions that all you had to do is ask questions. Or maybe you are at the point in your relationship where you're tired of asking questions because the other person is not forthcoming or they don't give you the answers that you want. That happens. I mean, how can you get blood from a stone, especially if it is a stone, is an inanimate object? But many of us start out by not asking questions. And of course, it's an other person's responsibility to respond adequately or to at least be honest in their response or reply to you. But many people make assumptions and draw conclusions and they keep it in here. Remember, the mind is like, I should say, the brain actually absorbs all these assumptions and conclusions, and they store them in these little compartments that you may not access immediately, but you're actually doing the work of an attorney in the relationship when you start making assumptions and drawing conclusions. You're actually building a case against your partner. You're actually determining if this person is guilty without even involving them in the process or making them aware that they're under investigation. So you're building a case, and a lot of us are good at building cases. I used to be excellent at it. Well, if they're doing this, this must be the case. If they're behaving this way, this must be the natural outcome. If they're acting different, then this must be this. I recently watched a movie on Netflix, and the wife naturally assumed the husband was cheating because of how he was with his phone, how he was with his secretary. And it turned out he was planning a surprise birthday party for her. And to her chagrin, she had already acted on the notion that he was cheating on her and she started cheating. So, that's preemptive, but that's a classic example of making assumptions and drawing conclusions. And that's the far left, right? That's going to the extreme, cheating. But what about just the breakdown in communication where the person's mood is off? And instead of saying, how was your day? What's going on? And sometimes, like I said, people can stonewall and shut down and not want to share because you're at a place in your relationship where there's resentment or, other issues that you have not dealt with or excavated. So that person's response to you might not be the response that this question should elicit. But if you're in a place, still a good place, relatively good place, you should be able to say to the person, well, tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what's wrong. How can I help you? How can there's something happen? Natural conversation, just asking questions, just caring enough, and just allowing that person to share would avoid the whole aspect of forming assumptions or coming drawing conclusions. The other thing that a lot of people do, and I have to admit that passive aggressive behavior, and is a personality. Some people say it's a personality trait that some people exhibit, but passive aggressive behavior also comes about in a relationship that's deteriorating, where the communication is deteriorating, because you're passively not addressing, you're addressing the issue that really you just need to be forthright with. You're pussyfooting around, and that terminology. And instead of just asking, being direct, passive aggressive behavior, if you really want a simplistic and reductionist way of describing it, is behavior where you're choosing to be indirect. You're just not being direct with your partner. You're not asking them directly a question that would get you the answer that you need, because you determine that you can't be direct with this person. You don't want to be direct with this person, and being direct with this person doesn't have any results. But all of that could be avoided if, before you get to that place, you stop making assumptions, stop drawing conclusions, and just ask questions that are relative or questions that are direct. One of the pitfalls of doing all three of these things, being passive aggressive, making assumptions and drawing conclusions, is that you can cause a lot of unnecessary pain to each other and to yourself. I know as a counselor that there are a lot of times in relationships where people have made assumptions about the other person that are not true. And then there are times when, that woman's intuition or that manly gut feeling that you know something is off is right. There are those occasions. But wouldn't it be much easier if you didn't have to be a sleuth or a detective or a pseudo attorney and try to snoop doggy dog or think evidence that supports how you're feeling or the assumptions that you have or the conclusions you've drawn? Wouldn't it be much easier if this was a world where right off the bat, you draw a clear boundary in your relationship and say, you know what, to avoid either one of us making assumptions and conclusions, let's go into this relationship, adult to adult. And if there's something that we're not sure of or uncertain of, let's choose to ask each other questions instead of making assumptions and conclusions and going about it in a passive aggressive manner. Let's choose to adult here. Let's choose not to get caught up in our emotions and our feelings. Let's not go to a place where we're stonewalling or we're shutting down because our emotions are fragile, or because we had a bad day, or because we don't know how to not displace our emotions or our feelings. Instead, let's both agree to approach the topic, regardless of what it is, regardless of how sensitive it is or how afraid we are. Let's approach that topic by asking each other a question that is direct in nature for the sole purpose of effective communication. My name is Ingrid Felton. As always, thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing to the videos. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for your comments. As always, I always implore you to tell others about what I'm doing here. And I hope that you continue to find value in what I'm saying and what I'm promoting here. I don't have all the answers. And if there's anything, any kind of question that or a topic that you want me to address, why don't you just, in your comments, just say, hey, Ingrid, why don't you talk about this topic? I'm not an expert, but I'm sure that I can oblige based on my experience. I hope you have an amazing day, and I look forward to seeing you here again. Bye.